In this video, I'll give you my full card predictions for UFC 303. As always, you can call me Kunith. Let's make some money this week. We have a rematch in the main event this week. Jiri Prochazka's looking to get one back over the man who snapped his 13-fight winning streak and handed him his only loss in the UFC so far. In their first fight, the first round was very competitive. Jiri Prochazka did a bit more. He mixed in the grappling, getting to the clinch, getting a takedown, landing a few more strikes, pressuring forward. He won the round on every judge's scorecard. Through those first 5 minutes, he was in control of the fight. He wasn't dominating the fight, but he was in control of it. And even in the second round, Jiri Prochazka was having a lot of success for most of that round, but the biggest separator in that fight, which is the biggest separator in this fight, the power. Alex Pereira's got stupid power and crisp technique to go along with it. The power in the calf kick has his opponents limping and switching stances and jumping around after he lands just one or two. And the power that he can generate with that lead left hook is ridiculous. We've said it on the channel before and I'll say it again, it's the single best weapon in the sport today. And he can throw it at any time. He can throw it while moving backwards as a check hook to counter any kind of forward pressure. He can also throw it in tight during an exchange. That was the strike that led to the finish against Jiri Prochazka in the first fight. He can also use it while moving forward to initiate a combination. That's what knocked out Jamal Hill. What is dead may never die. That power can put anyone out at any time, and he knows how to set it up as well as anybody that we've ever seen. Now, Jiri Prochazka has power too, but his power comes from breaking guys down. He's just bombing on them over and over again, hitting them with technique and angles that they're not used to seeing. It's not traditional. Nothing that he does is traditional. So he's catching guys by surprise, and then by the time they kind of catch up, they're already too hurt.
Congratulations.
Now in this fight, Payton is a slightly bigger favorite than he was in the first one, and I don't know how he couldn't be. He knocked this dude out 7 months ago to get the belt, looked great in his title defense, and I could see this fight going the same way. Now we picked him to win that fight by knockout, and he has the tools to do it again, and he also has the ability to fight from behind, which you love to see. Did the same thing in that first fight against Israel Adesanya, was a bit behind against Jiri Prochazka and then was able to knock him out. You love to see a guy be able to come back from behind and still win. So if you're on Alex Pereira this week, it makes sense, but I do have to go against you. I feel like Jiri Prochazka wins this week and sets up a third fight. If you go back and watch the first fight, we already talked about some of the things that Jiri Prochazka did well, but let's talk about some of the things that he didn't do well and why he lost and the adjustments that he needs to make. First mistake was settling in orthodox right in front of Pereira. Jiri can switch stances and fight out of either side no problem, but you'll notice when he settled in orthodox, that calf kick was there all night. The second mistake that he was making was resetting after having success in close, and I understand you don't want to hang out in the pocket too long because you don't want that left hook to come behind your ear, on your temple, or hit you on the chin when you're not paying attention. But he was doing his best work in close. He would land a couple of strikes, big ones at that, then he would back up and reset. When he had the clinch, he was in complete control, and then Pereira would break free, they would totally reset. Prochazka would go right back to the center of the octagon, and that's the thing, you can't compound mistakes against an elite striker like this. It's not going to work. That's what he did. He reset, stood right in front of him in orthodox, Payton's blasted him with calf kicks, rinse and repeat. For most of the fight outside of those moments, Jiri was winning. So how does he fix it? Well, first he's got to switch stances more, or at least spend more time in southpaw when he decides to settle. He's got to keep moving forward. If he does that, I think he can make Payton real uncomfortable, and he's also got to wrestle more, and I expect him to make those adjustments in this one, because there ain't no way that this dude is sitting in an outhouse in the dark for 3 days straight and not contemplating how he can change to get his belt back. I expect a much better performance from him this time, or even just not getting caught this time the same way that he did. I think he finds a way to win. I think he sets up a third fight. Give me Jiri Prochazka to win this fight inside the distance and new. In our co-main event spot, we have a banger, probably the most intriguing matchup on the card between Diego Lopes and Brian Ortega. Both these guys are coming off the best wins of their respected careers. T-City straight up took Yair Rodriguez's lunch money last time out, where he showed off that crazy toughness he's known for, and he dominated the fight on the mat like he has done against so many other fighters throughout his career. Now on the other side, Diego Lopes is coming off of a crazy knockout win over Super Sadiq Youssef, and we talked about this last time we broke Diego Lopes down. The guy's captured some magique. He's got the sauce right now. 3 straight first round finishes at featherweight is damn near unheard of, and I don't think that's ever happened inside the UFC. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I don't think anybody in the UFC at featherweight is putting together first round finishes like that outside of maybe Conor McGregor. And not only is he finishing these fights early, but he's doing it in more ways than one. He's not somebody who's overly reliant on big punching power. He's not overly reliant on his great jiu-jitsu. He's somebody who can blend the two together nicely to make him dangerous anywhere that the fight goes. And Brian Ortega is dangerous as well, but he doesn't offer that same kind of early upside. He is patient. He does settle into the fight. He takes what the opponents give him. He snatches up submissions in a flash, rush, but typically it's in the later rounds. So this one's tough, and it's really hard to go the other way when it comes to Diego Lopes because he's been so fantastic since his debut, even in his debut. He's putting Movsar Evloev in several tricky positions. It looks like he's about to end the fight or grab up a submission or at least get close to making Movsar very uncomfortable. But here's the thing, those are the moments that stand out to us. That's how we remember it, but you go back and you watch the fight and you see them for what they are. They are moments, but the rounds, even with the moments, still belong to Movsar Evloev. So I don't want to give him too much credit for the debut loss, but he did do well against somebody who's one of the best fighters in the division today. So while I respect the Lopes game because it's impossible not to, and while I respect the confidence needed for that haircut, Brian Ortega is an eagle sharpening his beak. He's been at the top of the division for years now, and when you look at some of the guys that he's faced like Frankie Edgar, Moicano, Cub Swanson, Holloway, Korean Zombie, Volkanovski, Yair Rodriguez twice, he's competed at a crazy high level for a very long time, and it's hard for me to see Diego Lopes, one, knocking him out, and it's even harder for me to see him being submitted. And I think the style that Lopes fights with is going to be one where he's taking a lot of risks and he's slowing down as fights go on because he's fighting at a crazy pace. And to beat Brian Ortega, you got to minimize those risks. You have to make as few mistakes as possible, and you've got to have serious toughness and cardio, because if you don't have those things, it's bad biscuits. And if we look at the last fight against Yair Rodriguez and how dominant that performance was after the first round, kind of wipes away the injury loss to him. It was a bit fluky. So you look, the only guys that he's ever lost to are Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski. So unless you think Diego Lopes will have his spot on the Mount Rushmore of UFC featherweights, then T-City is probably the side. So give me the experience, give me the toughness, give me the grappling, give me Brian Ortega to win this fight inside the distance, probably in the third round. And real quick, if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm. You know how the algorithm works. And one question I have for you in the comments: was Jared Gordon robbed? Yes or yes? Let me know in the comments. Next, we have a light heavyweight fight between Anthony Smith and Roman Dolidze. This fight is like one of those Russian nesting dolls. This fight was supposed to be Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree, and then it was Hill versus Carlos Olberg, and then it was Carlos Olberg versus Anthony Smith, and now it's Smith versus Dolidze. And it's a tricky one for Roman Dolidze, who's moving up from middleweight for the first time. He's extremely dangerous. Big power in both hands, excellent grappling, decent enough chin, and can dig deep when he needs to. He's been put in there with some of the best fighters at middleweight as of late. He fought Jack Hermanson. He went 5 rounds last time out with Nasruddin Imavov, where he was a step behind for the entire fight. He ended up losing. But before that, he had a 3-rounder against Marvin Vettori. Most people watching, myself included, thought that he won, but the judges didn't. No surprise. But before that, he was on a tear, and I still consider him to be one of the better fighters at 185 pounds. Now on the other side, I thought Anthony Smith was toast. Most people were writing Anthony Smith's obituary before his last fight because he had looked bad recently. He's taken a lot of damage in his career. He's getting up there in age. I personally thought that Vitor Petrino was going to make it look easy against him, and I was wrong. Dead wrong. He snatched up a guillotine early in that fight. He got the tap, and that's a bad look for Vitor Petrino. Guillotines don't work. And don't run to the comments like, Kunith, people have won via guillotine before. I know that. I know it's a possibility. But at a certain level, you don't see these guys getting caught with guillotines all that often. That's all I'm saying. That's how Anthony Smith has been finding ways to win, submitting guys late. But submitting someone like Roman Dolidze is a tall task. Dolidze's nasty on the mat. And I think if they do make it down there, when they make it down there, he's going to show that he's the better grappler between the two. On the feet, I give the striking edge to Roman Dolidze as well. I think Smith is a bit cleaner and he's going to do a better job of putting straight punches together, but I think the edge in power and the edge in durability are on the side of the Georgian. The short notice nature of this fight doesn't really bother me for Dolidze, considering that it'll be up at 205. He's not making that cut to middleweight right now. Now, he's not the younger guy by any means, but he has way fewer miles on him, and Lionheart doesn't offer the same kind of speed that Imavov did, the same kind of toughness that Vettori did. I see Dolidze breaking his small losing streak here and maybe staying at light heavyweight for good, depending on how he looks in there. I think if you're a fighter who has the size for it to move up to 205 and you're losing against the higher ranked guys at 185, there's no point in fighting middleweights. You don't need to. 205 is not as deep as 185 is right now, and I think there's a log jam at the top when you consider who's fighting for the title, who could seemingly fight for the title. Robert Whittaker can fight for the title tomorrow. Sean Strickland's still in the mix. Dricus du Plessis and Israel Adesanya have some things they need to work out. Light heavyweight's not that deep, so if you got the talent, you can move up, put a couple of wins together, you can really make some noise. But anyway, I'll take the fresher man, the better grappler in my opinion, definitely the more reliable chin. Give me Roman Dolidze to win this fight by decision. Next, we have a fight between Mayra Bueno Silva. She's fighting Macy Chaisson this week. Shannon Sharp, share your thoughts.
Chicken wings, fried catfish, yams, collard greens, mac and cheese, cornbread.
Totally agree. The line is not wide enough here. This fight could not be a better matchup for Mayra Bueno Silva. Macy Chaisson, as you can see on the screen, size advantage. A lot taller, a lot longer, but she wants to wrestle, and that's the problem. Bueno Silva is not somebody you want to grapple with if you don't have to. Now, if Macy fought long, stayed behind a jab, didn't overextend herself, didn't want to clinch, then she'd be a very live dog in my opinion, especially because Bueno Silva is going to slow down in the late second and third round. But we already know she's not going to do that. She's going to be looking for takedowns right away. Bueno Silva can slap on a ninja choke like she did against Holly Holm. She can throw up an armbar off her back, a triangle choke if you're feeling froggy. I expect her to find a choke here once Macy decides to wrestle. And if you look at the record, you might say, oh, well, Chaisson's only been submitted once. One, it was by guillotine like we just talked about. And two, she hasn't really faced a real submission threat in her career. Bueno Silva is going to be the best grappler she's seen by a wide margin. I fully expect her to get caught this week. Give me the better jiu-jitsu player, give me the better fighter, give me the favorite. Give me Mayra Bueno Silva to win this fight by submission. Next, we have two of the more effective strikers at welterweight this week with Ian Garry fighting Michael Venom Page. Ian Garry is undefeated, 7-0 in the UFC, coming off of a win over Jeff Neal. And just think about that for a second. 7-0 in the UFC. How many other fighters can you say that about? And we've talked about this before, and I just want to touch on it again. The out of competition stuff has led to people not liking them, but I promise you, I couldn't care less. I don't care about these fighters' personal lives. I have one of my own that takes up enough of my time. So if we're only looking at the stuff that matters, the MMA performances, the training situation, the dude's a problem, and he's going to keep winning. He can wrestle, he has good jiu-jitsu, he's one of the best strikers in the division, and he has a fantastic training situation. Above all, I think his best weapon is his patience. He's not going to brawl because the fans want him to. He's going to keep his distance, fight his fight, not rush a finish either, and it might be boring to watch sometimes, but the guy is winning. On the other side, MVP's coming off a strong performance in his debut against Kevin Holland, where he just looked a step ahead on the feet. Kevin Holland looked confused about what was going on in front of him, and that's the thing that Michael Venom Page brings to the table. He's impossible to game plan for. Nobody in your training room is going to be able to do what he does, move how he moves, and everything might seem offbeat to his opponent, but perfectly in rhythm for him, and that's where he can make guys strangely uncomfortable while he's strangely comfortable. It's got to be a very frustrating style to deal with, and that's why he's had so much success as a mixed martial artist, but I think he struggles in this one. First, he's going to be chasing. Ian Garry does a great job of staying on his bike, pulling his opponents in, and I think he's just going to be sucking MVP into range. Pause. Second's going to be the grappling. We saw Kevin Holland do some good work when he was able to get the fight to the ground, and I think that Ian Garry can do the same thing, and Kevin Holland would have won that fight. It was 1-1 going into the third, but he was mentally defeated before getting in there for the last 5 minutes. I don't think Ian Garry is going to do something like that. He's not going to let a fight get away from him, especially if it's 1-1 going into the third round. He's going to make the adjustments. He's got an O to protect. I don't think this fight is going to be a back and forth war. Neither of these guys fight like that. They both like clean fights where they're in control, but I think Ian Garry's going to be the one that wins the rounds by controlling Page, clinching a whole lot, mixing in takedowns, burning clock with dominant positions. Give me Ian Garry to win this fight by decision. And Ian Garry will find himself on the official betting article this week. The official betting article was profitable again last week, would have been even more so if we didn't see a robbery in the Jared Gooden fight. Jared Gooden? Jared Gooden didn't fight Oscar, it's Jared Gordon. Jeez Louise. First, you placed 10th at the dance recital in Milwaukee, and now you're messing up names? Message to Jared Gordon, if you're watching this, don't fight outside of the US, you stand no chance. But again, it was profitable. If you want the official betting article, DFS strategy guide, lineup optimizer, data model, projections, access to the community tab, everything, you can get that on kunithmma.com. And if you want something for free, you can go down to where it says get free betting picks and tips. I will send you my favorite prop of the week at the juiciest odds. Last week, it was Sergey Pavlovich round 1 knockout. All that can be had on kunithmma.com. Check it out, link in the description. Best way to support the channel. Back to the breakdown. Next, we have a fight between Joe Pyfer and Marc-Andre Barriault. Joe Pyfer looking to get back on track after losing for the first time in the UFC. We picked against him in that fight because it was a big step up in competition against Jack Hermansson, who was really just a bad matchup for him. Jack Hermansson has a good chin, really good footwork, cardio to go 5 rounds, better grappling, higher level experience, all of that. should have made Jack Hermanson the favorite. But Joe Pyfer is a huge puncher, so he was favored, a lot of hype, totally get it. But that huge punching power, it's not like it's gone away. He's still very young, so he's not a finished product by any means. There's still some polishing to go on. So if you're the matchmakers, okay, you tested him against the gatekeeper, he gets turned back, fails the test, no problem. Let's reset him with a veteran brawler who's never going to give you a boring fight and see what happens. And I say it like that so that you don't think I'm like, oh, the UFC wants him to win. I really don't think that happens as much as people say it does. But Marc-Andre Barriault is a dog. The dude's going to come at you on a straight line, make it dirty, throw a good amount of strikes, and leave it all on the line each and every time. You've never watched the power bar fight and think, damn, I wish he was doing more. But this is exactly the kind of guy that Joe Pyfer's gonna smoke, to be fair. Someone who stands squarely in front of him, has built a career off of being durable, which only lasts for so long and does certainly have a ceiling. That's an all-you-can-eat buffet for Joe Pyfer, and I'm sure body bags after suffering his first UFC losses, hella hungry. I think Joe Pyfer lines him up early, lands one of those big right hands, leaves Marc-Andre Barriault dapping up Johnny Walker in a place where time doesn't exist, and probably does it in the first round. So give me the power, give me the youth, give me the bounce back spot. I'm going to take Joe Pyfer to win this fight by knockout. Next we have a fight between Cub Swanson and Andrei Fili, two vets going at it this week. Big stakes here as well. Loser has to pay for the other's laser tattoo removal per reports. Cub Swanson hasn't fought in some time. Last time he fought was about 10 months ago on the card headlined by Vicente Luque, which, fun fact, was a card that we got perfect. We had the clean sweep, so hopefully Cub can help us dial up some magic again. And if you don't remember, in that fight he fought Mean Hakeem Dawodu, and a lot of people are going to say that's a robbery. And I'm telling you now, upon the rewatch, it was a robbery. Mean Hakeem should have gotten the nod in that one. Close fight either way. I believe that fight was supposed to be the retirement fight for Cub Swanson, but because he won, maybe he just kept going. MMA is one of those games where people rarely end on a win. Now on the other side, Andrei Fili's been up and down in the UFC, but he's fought some really tough guys along the way. He's been there, done that. He's always going to fight for your money, and I think he's the rightful side in this one. He's a lot younger, and when I say a lot younger, in MMA years, the gap between 40 years old and 34 years old is different than, say, the gap between 28 years old and 22 years old. It's still 6 years, but it's a very different 6 years, you get me. But I expect Fili to fight real long in this one, mix in takedowns here and there, just do more than Cub Swanson to win these rounds, especially in the third round when Cub starts to get a bit tired. I just can't get behind a 40-year-old featherweight right now. So give me the youth, give me the size, give me the grappling. I don't care that Dan Ige starched him last time out. It happens. Give me Andrei Fili to win this fight by decision. And just a heads up, on Twitter or X, whatever you kids are calling it nowadays, you can follow me there at Kunith MMA. That will be linked in the description. That's where I put kind of my live fight reactions. So if you're ever like, damn, I wonder what Kunith was thinking about the fight, check me out on Twitter. We're trying to hit 2,000 followers on Twitter before Oscar's triple bypass. When is that, you ask? I don't know. I don't pay attention to your calendar, you piece of garbage. Oh, it's in 9 days. Oh, okay. 9 days. Next fight we have is Charles Jourdain fighting Gene Silva. First glance, I felt pretty good about my knee-jerk reaction to this fight. I like the power and the confidence coming from Gene Silva, but Charles Jourdain is super tough and hard to put away. If the fight gets extended, we could possibly see Jourdain putting together a better round 3, so I leaned Jourdain, but after pondering it for a while, going back and looking at it, I can't go against Silva in this fight. Jourdain is still young, still growing, still changing as an MMA fighter, still evolving, right? He's maybe like a Pikachu right now, but he might be a Raichu one day. I think I got that in the right order. I don't care to look it up. But anyway, he has yet to shore up the takedown defense, and Silva's going to be able to wrestle as much as he wants this week. And we already knew that he had big power, right? We saw that on full display when he was knocking Weston Wilson all over the octagon, and even in his Contender Series fight, he had more power than Kevin Vallejos. That's what allowed him to win rounds, because the output was pretty similar on both sides. But power aside, to go back to the wrestling, Silva's coming out of the Fighting Nerds gym. They're a pretty cerebral bunch over there. They put together a nice game plan for their fighters, and I think that Gene Silva's going to take the path of least resistance here and wrestle quite a bit. And Jourdain has lost rounds and lost fights because he's getting taken down too often, and if you look at the fights that he's won in the UFC, I don't think you can confidently say that anybody that he's beaten is on Gene Silva's level. Doo Ho Choi, although we kind of look at that through rose-tinted glasses, Marcelo Rojo, Andre Ewell, Lando Venata, Crone Gracie, Ricardo Ramos, solid guys are mixed into that bunch, yes. But none of those wins are exactly jumping off the page to you, so I think that Gian Silva goes in there and gets it done. I like him to win more minutes, grapple to put stamps on rounds, land big shots as well that are going to bust up that Jourdain nose, and he's going to get it done on the judges' scorecards. Give me Silva to win this fight by decision. Next, we have a fight between Payton Talbott and Yanis Ghemmouri. Payton Talbott's a minus 1,600 favorite. Next, we have a fight between Michelle Waterson-Gomez. She's fighting Gillian Robertson. How easy, guys, how easy? How easy would it be for me to flick on the camera, have Oscar slide over the script, tell you that Michelle Waterson-Gomez is old and has lost a lot recently, and how she probably should retire, and that Gillian Robertson is an elite grappler who should have no problem dominating this fight. I could sit here and point to examples justifying why Robertson is the rightful favorite, and if I'm wrong, well, it wouldn't matter to any of you because you're not going to bet on this fight anyway. You're probably not going to roster either side of this fight in your DraftKings lineups, and people rarely argue when I pick a favorite. It's only underdogs that people don't agree with, so I could play it safe. I can go with Gillian Robertson here. Why not? Why not play it safe and not have to hear anything if I'm wrong? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because you deserve the truth. And the truth is Michelle Waterson-Gomez is going to win, and I'm going to convince you why in the next 30 seconds maybe. At the big old age of 38 years old, she's going to win this fight, and she's faced some of the best female fighters the sport has ever seen. But through all that, Michelle Waterson-Gomez has maintained pretty strong takedown defense. God-given toughness as well. Like, you've seen her get rocked a lot, and she just does not stop fighting. She's as tough as they come, and you'd be mistaken if you think she isn't the better striker in this fight. If Robertson gets stuck on the feet, she's going to struggle mightily with the kicking game and the timing coming from Waterson-Gomez. And frankly, I think that Michelle Waterson just keeps fighting because she's looking for that one last win. It's like for all you hoopers out there, right? You go to the park, you run some pickup, or maybe you're at the gym practicing by yourself. Are you going to leave without making a jumper? No, of course not. That'd be blasphemous to the basketball gods. So I think she wants to see one more go in before she calls it quits. And to me, this is closer to a 50-50 fight than what the line is suggesting. So give me the veteran, give me the takedown defense, give me the striking, give me the final win before she calls it quits, because Gillian Robertson, she has done really well against fighters with really bad takedown defense. But when fighters can keep their feet, or when they are the ones taking her down, that's when she struggles. I think Michelle Waterson is closer to the group that she struggles against than she is to the group that she dominates. So give me Michelle Waterson-Gomez to win this fight by decision. In this next fight, we have heavyweights, Andrei Arolovski and Martin Buday. Andrei Arolovski is going to be fighting longer than you will be alive. At 45 years old, 57 fights later, he takes on Martin Buday, and I can see a world, a dimension, a universe where Andrei Arolovski strikes on the outside, hot shots his way to a decision win like he's done to so many middling heavyweights over the years, but I think those days might be done. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. He takes super good care of himself, but even then, at 45 years old in a sport like this, it's okay to lose a step, and that's what's happening. And Martin Buday is a big boy. A lot to handle. The guy's a hoss. And I could see them going back and forth, trading strikes for 15 minutes, but the power coming from Buday, the size advantage that he's going to have, not only in height, but also in weight. He's going to be much heavier in there. I just think it's going to be a lot different than what we're getting from Andrei Arolovski. On top of that, I think the output is pretty solid from Martin Buday, so I expect him to march forward. I expect him to cut off the cage, unlike Sergey Pavlovich last week, am I right? And he's going to be landing big punches each round, and I could see Buday also clinching in this one, making Andrei Arolovski carry his weight. So I think he's just going to wear him out in this one. And like, he's coming off the loss to Shamil Gaziev. Fine. Shamil Gaziev is a much bigger puncher and a better finisher than Andrei Arolovski is at this stage in his career. So give me the bigger man, the much younger man, the fighter that throws more volume. Give me Martin Buday to win this fight by decision. Next, we have a fight between Carlos Hernandez. He's fighting Reihi Saruya this week. You might not know who Reihi Saruya is, and that's okay, because, I mean, do I watch Road to UFC live? Does a dolphin walk on 2 feet? But I do go back when I'm researching the fights, and this dude is serious business at 22 years old. When I first saw the betting odds, I thought that the line was pretty wide, but when you watch Reihi fight, you start to understand why. Carlos Hernandez does give up a lot of takedowns, and Saruya's wrestling is phenomenal. I think Saruya actually makes it look quite easy this week and looks like the favorite that he is, because he's going to take Hernandez down at will. Not only will he take him down, but he's very active on top. Even if it ends up losing him the position, he'll just get him back to the ground anyway. So I think he's going to be looking for the finish the entire time. Too strong, too athletic, too fast, and he's going to get it done before the third round. Give me Reihi Saruya inside the distance. And lastly, we have a super fun fight to open the card. Friend of the show, Ricky Simón, and KO of the year potential holder candidate, if you will, Vinicius Oliveira. They're going to get after it to open the card. And if you don't remember, Oliveira made his UFC debut back in March of this year, went to war with Bernardo Sopai, back and forth. Both guys had success, but Vinicius Oliveira finished that fight in the third round with one of the absolute nastiest flying knees you will ever see. And what you gotta love about him is, one, he's got huge power, but he can also dig deep and fight hard even late in these fights. And if you look at that fight against Sopai, he was slowing down. He looked pretty defeated. The live odds swing for Sopai, but there was a point where he caught a second wind, and I think that happened because he could feel Sopai fading, given that he was coming in on short notice. When Oliveira felt this, you could see him start to pick it up a little bit, and that's why he was able to catch him. And I like me some Vinicius Oliveira very much. But Ricky Simón's a bad matchup for him, frankly, because this guy was getting taken down by Sopai on short notice in his debut, and we remember the knee and how amazing it was, not taking anything away from him. But had Sopai not gassed out, he probably would never have gotten the knee, and he probably would have lost that fight. One thing Ricky Simón's never going to do to us is gas out. I'll tell you that right now. Yes, sir. Not going to happen. And he dropped his last 2 fights, but he's still one of the better wrestlers in the division. He's beaten pretty quality opposition throughout the UFC, and Ricky Simón is not one of these guys that I can see losing 3 fights in a row. So what he brings to this one is not only striking. The guy has power in both his hands, and he can really put you down if he catches you with a hook, but more importantly, he's got big advantages in the grappling and in the experience. He's over a -200 favorite, but I expect him to look the part this week. I think Ricky Simón just grinds on him and wins all 3 rounds, at least the second and the third. Give me Ricky Simón to win this fight by decision. And if you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm, and I'll see you later in the week for final picks. Let's go.